On to some other news now. Business rescue to combat the extreme rise in liquidation has gone up by over 30% from 2021 to 2022. Now, the trend has highlighted the increasing need for assistance for businesses. But with the dire economic conditions and aggressive power cuts in the country, can a business rescue work, or have the options available to businesses become even more limited? Tobie Jordaan, who's the Director of Dispute Resolution Practice and Head of Business Rescue, Restructuring and Insolvency sector at Cliffe Dekker Hofmeyr, joins us this hour for more on this topic. Thank you very much for joining us this hour, Tobie. And I suppose one of the first avenues one would like to explore in this particular scenario is the legal options that are currently available for a struggling business in South Africa looking to restructure to avoid that dire situation of having to liquidate.
Sure, good afternoon, and thank you for having me. Business rescue can, in broad terms, be seen as an alternative to a liquidation. And of course, with your tariff hikes and your continuous blackouts, as well as an increase in the interest rates, it's tough times out there. And the message should be that financially, or companies that are financially struggling or financially distressed should consider the option of business rescue to resuscitate or to financially rehabilitate its affairs.
And then if one does have to liquidate the business, how does that liquidation process work in South Africa? Or if they have the option to go ahead and go through the business rescue route, how would that route look?
So a liquidation can commence either through a voluntary or compulsory process. And what that means is that the company itself can make a decision to file for a voluntary liquidation, or alternatively, an application can be launched by a creditor to court for the company to be put under liquidation. As an alternative, the option of business rescue is there, where the board can also voluntarily resolve to commence the business rescue proceedings, or any other creditor or affected person can apply to court. It's very important to note that the success of a business rescue very much depends on timing, and it should be the right time to file for business rescue. And often what we find is that companies are struggling financially, but aren't prepared to actually take the step and put themselves under business rescue, which then sometimes lead to inevitable to a liquidation.
And then what are the chances, should a business decide to go into business rescue at the correct time, as you've just pointed out? Is there a level of success in the situation? We've seen in numerous instances where there have been business rescue plans that have been extended over months after they were supposed to be concluded and the like. And one would just like to get an understanding of, ideally, how long and how successful can the process of business rescue be practically in the context of South Africa?
So a business rescue process can be quite long. We often don't hear of the success stories, and there are some success stories, maybe not as a successful rescue, but there are successful elements to a rescue. One must consider whether saving jobs through a business rescue process, where you sell off a business and where the employees will remain employed. That's most certainly, in our trying times and with the unemployment that we have in our country, a massive success story. But unfortunately, business rescue is costly. It also takes long to implement. There are success. Of course, business rescue have two roles to it, or the success is measured as two alternatives. One is that the company will return to a state of solvency, and secondly, it is that you will offer the creditors more than that they would have received in a liquidation. So it depends on what leg you interpret or you wish to apply to determine success. But yes, I believe that there is a space in our economy for successful business rescues.
And it's an important point that you bring up there, Tobie, the cost of business rescue, because as I mentioned in my intro, there's been a significant increase in liquidations over companies choosing to go the business rescue route. So if you could just break down to us what I suppose the easiest option in inverted commas would be when a company is under duress and the options for survival are limited.
So the first thing that a company must do when it realizes that it is in financial distress is that it must immediately take advice and take professional advice to consider its different options. If it's done at the correct time, if it's done timelessly, the advice would be to consider filing for business rescue or to immediately embark on an informal turnaround or restructure. If you leave that too late, the process may just become more expensive and longer to conclude. And also, you may not necessarily have the buy-in, the support of your creditors and your key stakeholders in the process.
What about the debt? In a situation of a liquidation or a business rescue situation, Tobie, who is liable for the debt that has been incurred by that business over the years of operation?
So directors can be held personally liable for the debts of the company if it's found that they were trading in a reckless manner. So therefore, as I said earlier, as soon as the board of a company realizes that it is financially distressed, it's very important for the directors, in order to avoid personal liability, to immediately seek advice and to act in a reasonable manner.
And then what about the legal interests of the employees who would no doubt be impacted by a situation of this nature? How does the legal system protect them in a situation of this nature that you've just described to us?
So I think it's a detailed question that requires a detailed answer. I can summarize for you quickly. In the sense that business rescue is by far more favorable to employees than a liquidation. If a company files for business rescue, the employees will remain employed and they will be paid for their outstanding salaries post-business rescue. Of course, any retrenchment process must be conducted through a business rescue by giving effect to the normal employee legislation. However, in a liquidation, as soon as a liquidation order is granted, all employment contracts are suspended. And if not continued, it will automatically terminate within 45 days of the date of the suspension. And of course, there's a limitation then on the amount that can be paid to employees in a liquidation. So if, as I said earlier, one of the success stories in a rescue is most certainly to consider and to look after your employees, and business rescue is by far more favorable to employees than liquidation.